On today's show, I'm talking with Remedy Games' Mikael Kasurinen, the director of Control Resonant and creative director of the entire Control franchise. I'm a huge fan of Remedy games. Max Payne 2 is in my top 3 favorite games of all time, and whenever a new Remedy game comes out, it's always a big event at my house. Way back when I was working for a different outlet, I went to my first New York Comic Con and got to interview Sam Lake for the original Control. And I even got to meet one of my favorite actors, James McCaffrey, who played characters in almost every Remedy title before he tragically passed away in 2023. They say to never meet your heroes, but he was really a great guy. It was so much fun to hang out with him and just pick his brain about his movies and TV projects. He said it was his first New York Comic Con too, and I think he appreciated that I didn't ask him that much about Max Payne, even though I really wanted to. Anyway, about Control Resonant, me and Michael talk about various Remedy games from Max Payne 2 to Quantum Break, and of course, Control Resonant. It's the first Remedy game since before Max Payne to not feature shooting guns as a core mechanic. And he talks about adapting the Northlight engine to this new core mechanic of melee combat and how that was a tricky but rewarding process. This was a really fun chat, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. If you do, I'd appreciate a like, a subscribe, maybe leave a comment. Okay, here's Mikael Kasurinen. First of all, I'm a huge fan of this series. I'm a huge fan of Remedy. I remember the first time I played the original Max Payne and thought that games could not get better than this. And then I played Max Payne 2 and was completely blown away again. And from what I understand, Max Payne 2 was your first Remedy game, right?
That's right, yes.
What did you do on that?
Uh, I was a gameplay designer. So basically, what that meant was that so we had like two groups of people, environment artists and gameplay designers. Environment artists created the actual environments and so on layouts, but the gameplay designers designed like the shapes of the different kind of spaces on how they should be organized. And basically designed the combat encounters and all the storytelling and all of that stuff. So if there was, let's say, a fight, defined where the enemies are, what do the enemies do, all the scripting involved, and so on. Technical, but also very creative because you got to basically create the sandbox that the player is walking into. And it was often about orchestrating, almost trying to create this movie-like scene, almost like the mobster leaps over the couch, or sometimes they make some stupid mistakes and so on, or they say something funny when, when they stumble and so on. Overall, like try to make the gameplay feel fun and orchestrated and create a bunch of variation across the whole experience. So that's what I did.
I mean, you succeeded because I think about today's era of live service, living games, replayable stuff, so that numbers can go up. And it's like I've replayed that game 100
Yeah.
times just because it's so friggin' good.
It's it's really interesting. There's something about I love games that gives more like systemic sandboxes and so on, but there's also something in very orchestrated experience as well that they are able to give a sense of surprise. As an example, for instance, from Max Payne 2, there's this mobster playing the piano. For some reason, they're playing Late Goodbye. That was actually my idea. I pitched it to the composer that, hey, can we do like a piano rendition like the mobster actually plays it? And then we got the animation, and then he was like sitting there and just playing and just hear it from a distance. It's just a little funny detail, but it turned out to be quite memorable when you enter because you didn't expect like, yeah, mobster kind of it was in the New York segment, the Upper East Side, in one
The
of the
million dollar
houses.
question.
Yes. So 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 it's a good example, and that's an example of the things that I did at the time.
Nice. And I ask just because I'm super curious and I love that game, but also because I feel like you can draw a line from Max Payne 1 to 2 to Alan Wake to Quantum Break to Control and and to Alan Wake 2 as well. And but that one's a little bit more different. And now Control Resonant is abandoning the gunplay entirely. Tell
Yeah.
me, is there still that line connecting all the way through, or is this like a fresh start in terms of gameplay for Remedy?
Oh wow, that's a great question. It sounds like there's a my instinct was when you started to kind of establish the question, I saw where you were going with it, was that no, no, of course not. We haven't abandoned like, our roots to Max Payne or anything like that. But now that I mean, sometimes change, like it's been what, 25 years now, since Max Payne 1, Max Payne 2, and the world changes, right? Like your instincts change, what you love change, and things that worked, 10 years ago don't work today anymore. I do think there's value in nostalgia, like, remakes and good reimaginations do really, really well, but often because they've been reinvented in a kind of in a nice way. I guess we are in a different place nowadays compared to those days. I think that's the raw reality of it. The things that we are doing from a mechanical side are very, very different. Having said that, having said that, I do think there is that energy that we try to convey in Max Payne, where it's all about taking chances, leaping into the middle of a situation, being in the moment in a sandbox, and to me, in games, what makes them click to me is that you internalize the ideas of the game, and mastery comes from a place where you internalize them to a degree where you can improvise in unexpected situations and pull off something cool that you didn't plan to do. But because you've internalized something, you can do it. You come up with an idea in the moment and you execute and you pull it off. And that's just fucking amazing when you pull it off. And I think games are ultimately a lot about that. Yes, there tends to be repetition, but that repetition is there to create that internalization. And what we are trying to do at Remedy is to kind of have these moments that come almost out from nowhere, like in a surprising situation, but you can make sense of it in the moment and then react to it. And I feel like that spirit is there in Max Payne, and that's there definitely in Control and Control Resonant as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there aren't that many studios where I trust implicitly, that I'm just like, let them do whatever they want to do, and I'm going to be there. And Remedy has been that since 2001 for me. I know it's been even longer for some other people, but for me, Max Payne 1 was my jumping on point, and it's only gotten bigger and better from there. Plus, we've got Max Payne 1 and 2 coming in the future, which I know you can't
We
talk
do.
about, but
We do. And I can't, yes, no.
yeah.
But it's true. I think it's a valid point. Like it is, and I really had to think it through. Yes, it is the first game ever that we don't fire a gun. Every single game you shoot in some form in every single Remedy game. And this is the first one where we don't. It made me pause because I just realized it myself just now. So
So was it a complete like reinvention of like the tools, or were you able to kind of convert what you had from Alan Wake 2 and other uh what's the engines?
Northlight.
Northlight. I kept on thinking Snowdrop, and I'm like, I know it's not Snowdrop.
Yeah, there's
Northlight.
something about winter that we like to do with engine names in the Nordics for
Exactly.
some reason. Yes.
Like was it easy, or was it like years of how do we turn our shooting game into an action game?
Um, so yeah, so I think sorry, what my mind was kind of stuck on was I think many of the principles that we hold on to are still the same. I mean, yes, it's a new system with melee. We'd never done melee before. And we had a lot to learn, and we had time, which was great. Like we had time to do prototypes, try out different types of things, see what's the right way to handle the animations, VFX, audio, how to identify the moments when the weapon connect with the enemies, and so on. and more importantly, what to do then and so on. Pretty nothing surprising in the sense of what we knew that we needed to do. What was good was that already with the first Control game, we updated the Northlight engine with motion matching kind of animation system that allows the characters to kind of it sounds like a small detail, but it's actually a significant change that we did between Quantum Break and Control. That the gameplay was animation driven in Quantum Break. So basically, we had an animation, and the animation decided what the character does. It sounds weird, but that's basically how it was. And then it became this massive, monstrous kind of a collection of animations, basically. It looked really cool because the animations decided basically what happened, and the gameplay, in a way, followed. That's a huge simplification, but that's roughly what happened. And we now turned it the other way around. Like now, gameplay and physics tells what animations need to do. So we made that kind of a change in Control. That means that you can be a lot more responsive. Physics are like immediate and snappy. The character feels like it's doing what the player wants. And then the animations just basically try to adapt and do the right thing. That switch was fundamental and a really important one because it allowed us to, I think, go to a Max Payne-like place again because after Quantum Break. I think with that system, it allowed us to also handle movement and animations and all of that in such a way that I think made this kind of a hectic, fast-paced melee experience better. There was a lot of updates we need to do for Northlight, just simply because we stepped out into New York. These kind of bigger spaces, more complicated environments. You know, the human chaos can be well, hard to get right. And we couldn't afford, for instance, like hand placing every single asset. We had to create like these building generators and things like that to be able to actually create the different environments. Uh, so that required a bunch of updates for Northlight. And it took 2 years. We also updated our narrative systems and so on. So a lot of things actually had to happen so that we could actually even start to work on Control Resonant. So it was a huge deal to get through that. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
No, 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 you did. And you provided insight. I've always I'm a big Quantum Break fan. Um, but I always found it strange that that there was no like run and gun. You always had to fine aim.
yeah,
And the way you explained the way the animation works, it's like, oh, that's surely why.
yeah, and I love Quantum Break. I'm proud of the game, but if you play Control and then go play Quantum Break, you notice that, oh, okay, I see. Like there's this. It looks good. Animations look good. But there is that little clunkiness that I felt like we need to do something about this. We need to find a new because I wanted Control to be very fast paced, a lot about traversal, how you navigate through complicated environments, and those environments can be really wild. So I'm happy that we did the change.
I mean, I remember the first time I literally like hovered in control and shot people below me, and I was just like, shoot dodge 2.0.
Yes, yes. Levitate was awesome, and we're going like further into that direction with Control Resonant, where we flip the gravity as well, and so like try to squeeze even more out of like just movement within the world.
I'm tremendously excited to get my hands on it, not just because the gameplay looks absolutely sick, but because I gotta find out what happens next in this, this grand unfolding story that began in Alan Wake and has taken so many turns since then. Um, so and that's why you're at Tribeca. Bringing a video game to Tribeca, that's a statement right there,
That's right,
right?
yeah.
So you as franchise director, is there like in your office a cork board with red string attached and like Polaroids with all of the lore for the next 15 years? Or do you take it project by project and figure out and you're like, I don't know, me and Sam will powwow and figure out how this all works?
So basically the setup is that yes, we have in the studio two creative directors, me and Sam. We are like overseeing our own franchises. So Sam is looking at Alan Wake, I'm looking at Control. and there is this sense of a packages. I would argue like Alan Wake journey that is very like interconnected from one part to another and so on, and um, and it's of course centralized a lot around that character. And then what we do is we have these characters that kind of well bleed into each other's like experiences, like for instance, experience I mean as in different games. And like with Ahti, for instance, who started off in the first Control game, went on vacation, and now seems to appear in Alan Wake 2, and so on. So creating this sense of a connection between the universes, and which is good. But also at the same time, what's important to us that every game, every experience that we create stand on their own 2 feet. It is something that has its own clear, like whenever you start playing Remedy game, it has its own premise, a clear setup, and a satisfying ending as well. That it feels like it works as a package, and you don't technically need to go and play the other games. It's not just about making sure that it is something it helps with the planning because you know that with that principle you don't have to create like a super complicated spider web of things and so on. It can also become a burden to try to navigate all of that. So it's good for that. But I also believe it's good for the players as well. They get what they pay for, right? Like a good chunk of it, like a game that has everything it needs to have to be able to be fully realized experience. I think it's important that players get that feeling as well. But having said that, of course, like as you kind of go through these journeys and so on, you will meet characters that are familiar from, other games, but always we establish them in the game as if you don't know them already. So you need to kind of look at things from that perspective. And there's from a business side as well, there is that problem that can become a barrier almost. Like if people like let's say nobody's played like hasn't played Control ever or any Remedy game. If they if they go online and Reddit and ask, "Hey, I want to play Control Resonant, but should I play the other games before that?" If everybody goes like, "Yes, yes, you need to go back and start from Alan Wake 1," and then they go, "But I," and then
What's
they
the deal
don't
with
buy
that?
it. Yeah, it's too much. So that's why I'm also wanted to say, no, please, like if don't hesitate to just jump into Control Resonant, even if you haven't played the previous Control game. We'll explain everything that matters for this journey. And yeah, if you're excited about, let's say, Chessie's journey, you want to see her rise to become the director of the FPC, go and play the first Control game. It's its own story, it's its own thing, but they both stand on their own feet.
Hmm. Yeah, whenever I'm on those Reddit threads, I see those all the time, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
jump in wherever you want. You're gonna have a good time. So, speaking of the storytelling, back in the old days, um, the story would be written, and you'd bring in actors to say the lines. They would do it in like a day, and that was that. Um, Nowadays with motion capture and performance capture and the scanning with the 3D cameras and all that, at what
Yeah.
point um do the actors kind of come in, and to what extent do they get to help shape their characters more than back in say the Max Payne 1 and 2 days?
Right. So there are many different levels that you can be in, and when you're like realizing the fidelity of the expression that you want to have of the narrative in the experience, and the reality for us is as a studio is that we're not a massive studio. We're not like our budgets are not like hundreds of millions of and so on. So what we're trying to do, and it differs now. Sam has Alan Wake. There's a different approach there. There's a different approach in Control and so on. For me, Control is all about, realizing this world that feels like it has depth. Yes, characters, there's this sense of substance within them. They have deep knowledge. You can talk with them and you find additional information in the world, like in the form of narrative documents or just by looking at the environments and so on. So the story is like told in many different layers. And and there's a lot of it. There's like hours and hours of stuff that we created for Control Resonant. So with that comes this decision of like, okay, how do we package this? And we have this kind of a tier system on how we deliver story in Control Resonant. Um, I reserved cinematics, and cinematics tend to be the most expensive ones with the directed camera, lighting, VFX, complicated animation, very detailed like facial animations and so on. And we only do cinematics when there's a huge event in the game, like the world changes in some kind of a significant way and so on. And kind of make sure that those key moments are as good and detailed and as expressive as they can be. And then we have like lower tiers, and then we kind of go down to like what we called fixed camera conversations, which is basically characters talking. It's interactive, and you feel like you're like participating in the experience, and it has a directed camera and then lights and so on. Okay, sorry, this is a very long answer, but I want to explain this because a lot of people ask about it, and I feel like I never provided like a satisfying answer. I brush it off, but I think it's important to kind of see the creative decisions we have to make sure that it's a balanced experience in regards to storytelling. So many of these moments then have been handled in such a way where we focused on just capturing the facial animations, but we don't have like, for instance, the same character playing the actor playing the full body animation, but we combine then these multiple different things, and that allows us to have parallel tracks, like some of it happening in Finland, some of it happening in Los Angeles, and then so on. And then we combine these elements together to create the kind of a full experience. So the actors have to do a lot of layers of work, and some of it means that sometimes they just simply do the facial animations while some other actor handles the body mocap. There are exceptions, of course, depending on how important the scene is. So yeah, it's a really complicated web of things that we have to manage so that the budget stays sensible. Because again, we can't afford to do like full body mocap and so on every single time and so on. But I believe that we get the good end result, and there's a depth and substance to the characters and the stories. That's what we care a lot about, and then we find the right way to express it depending on the situation through the whole arc.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I accept.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's one of those things that I think can become very let's say big and complicated, and something that we have to be very mindful of.
Um, Kind of going back to the interconnectedness, the Remedy universe, etc. Have you, working on Control, bumped heads with Sam working on Alan Wake? Have you gone, oh, I want to do this in this game, and he goes, oh no, you can't because we're doing something in Alan Wake, or something like that? Has that happened? And how do you
Sure.
resolve it? Is it arm wrestling?
I wish it would be an arm wrestle because I would win immediately. So.
I'll tell
uh,
Sam you said that.
uh, of course, it happens. It's normal. We both have subjective views on characters and different directions that they take and the state of the world and so on. But we talk it through and find a way forward together and so on. Honestly, I think it's good. I for the kind of experiences themselves, because it allows them to have more color in them, more personality. It's a wider spectrum of different types of things, and as a studio, I think it's valuable. And so I believe it's for the ultimate betterment of everything that those things happen. But we've always managed to find a common path forward.